Ready to go for the VR.
Yep, its colours are all completely wrong. Okay, so we have our presentations for the end of EIT. Hello, people down there. For the end of the semester projects. We're going to go through each groups. We have the Vive set up here with this machine, so you can show off Vive things to the big screen, or you can give presentations from here, or if you want to give presentations from that machine, you can present from that machine. The point of this exercise is to show us, both Frodo and Tom and I, what you've achieved in the project and what the kind of analysis and your report and what you are, what the project part of EIT has achieved. Right? So we've given you guys about half an hour with 15 minutes changeover for questions and Q&A with each of us, and we'll just step through the afternoon, and we should hopefully be all done by about 3:30. If not, we have got until 4 o'clock. So yeah, so that's why we've got a little bit of leeway there. Okay, so the group who wants to go first, the museum group had suggested you guys are right. So you want to hook up your computer. All right, so you're gonna now. Do you have a presentation that you want to give with PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, you have slides. So you can either, like, I would move those from there to here, right? Move your computer to here. Yeah. And you're going to therefore have to do room setup on your machine if you're running it from your machine. Other groups, if you've already set up on here, that would be good. Yeah. So so what we'll do is we'll probably quickly do a room setup here. I think we can just transfer the Vive over, do the room setup. Yeah. You guys are all set up on that? So it looks like what we'll do is we'll unplug this one. Which will then go into your machine. Oh no, the USB is for controller. And do this. And right, so if one of you can do room setup, do you have a system? Right, do you have the DVI cable? Okay, I'll just go and get our other cable, and I'll be back.
Take your computer closer. A bit more.
Help with the room setup.
Yeah.
You have the VR.
Here's a question. Have any of you successfully set up the Unreal Editor on Linux? No? No one set up the Unreal Editor on Linux? Bother. I was trying to, and I was getting an odd error. So for the Sandbox project.
No, the presentation is going to be. We have a So
we have to switch computer. I have a.
We have actually. There we go. Right. So this is the evaluation committee. Don't assume that this is the evaluation committee. Very, yes. We can have secret discussions that they can't hear. Yes. Yes.
That one.
Wilcoxian
detect.
tests for
We start
like
like
time. Weird, sign of weird rank. Yeah. So I think utilizing, so some of the people using the microscopes use a non-parameter
Oh, well, it's not gonna come play.
It's common to use well, so we applied parameter and we get 0.00001. Massive significant difference. Yeah. Parameter gives a massive significant difference. But and the non-parameter
Same but different.
The same. Massive difference.
No.
Because it's a categorical measure. It's not like a scale. It's not a scalar.
Scales based on different scales. Values except scores or something.
Yeah. So well, you're not supposed to use the means of your it's not like a degree disagree scale. It is a larger like scale. Some sort of set up by category or a seven category.
So we're starting? Yeah.
So it's not
I guess we go over.
right. Okay. So you guys are ready?
I can just stand there. Hold it in my hand.
If you're having problems with that, I do have
Clicker.
specifically a clicker, a solution will do that for you and make you feel more presentable.
Yeah.
Like a TED talk.
Thank you.
We try it. Yay. Okay, right. So our first group. So I'll give an introduction. So this project came about partly because of a collaboration with Kartverket. They invited a group of our second year students to do a competition on open data, particularly mapping data within Norway. The second year students who went impressed the mapping agency and some of the other people who were there. Some of the other people there were a Tourism Norway group, and they invited the students to come and discuss doing a project around VR and data. And when we had a meeting with them, and I said, well, actually, that might be interesting for expert teams, right? So this has a consortium associated with this project who are looking for a long-term solution to encourage tourism. So I added this opportunity, and so this group picked that opportunity, and I'll hand it over to them to discuss what they found and what they did. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Like it takes care of that. So.
Are you just jumping to me now?
Yeah.
you can repeat what I see from your perspective.
Yeah. So they had a sort of existing project that we came into because Simon suggested it, but we were on the same path, so it made sense to join this project. And that's because of things that you're gonna talk about.
So at the start of the project, we were all very optimistic and enthusiastic because this was VR. It was something new. We hadn't really tested ourselves. So we started out with a lot of enthusiastic ideas about how we would approach this. And we were brainstorming, but the group was kind of split. Someone wanted just to do things that were fun, just have a random games.
Yeah, like
keep
Like,
the children off my
yes,
lawn
I
for
want-
elderly. You know.
I wanted to be like in a VR, be an elder guy and knock children away from my lawn.
Yeah.
Well, others wanted to do more educational or things that were more useful. We also had a lot of focus that we wanted to make a prototype, like a good prototype, put a lot of work into the programming. All the team members wanted to be a part of the programming and the idea phase. So one of the ideas we kind of came into was to make a VR museum where you have a museum where you can have different posts that could feature the possibilities of VR. And then I think Simon kind of heard that we were doing something with a museum, and he put us in contact with the Ringerike Museum.
And Azir?
So the first thing we did was meet up with the different stakeholders and
First you met with the students.
the better students.
Yeah, so we're in touch with
Yeah,
them.
I got some ideas for
secondary students.
and yeah, there were a lot of different stakeholders with both concerned with tourism, just tourism, and the guy that owns the museum, RNH Museum. And yeah, we went there and talked to them, and they gave us a tour about the exhibitions and area around there.
Stand there.
You can
Okay.
It's like the start of the Pixel Weird.
Right. And we noticed that they had some conflicting views. Some wanted to make something that took
Were the commercial aspects of Vikings.
Vikings and spin-off of the Vikings series.
Yeah, because they wanted more visits to the region, so they wanted more commercial appeal. So, while the guy owning the museum, he was sort of like more about the historical accuracy. He wanted to represent the history of Ringerike and what he had to work with around the museum.
And it was kind of clear that you can't really call it Viking age if you focus on the location, because they don't have enough findings to call it that.
So I think that's disappointing some other stakeholders on the project.
They make them have contact among stakeholders.
But yeah, I think we ended up listening to the marketing tourism people, because they had more influence on the whole project and the group in general.
Yeah, they were sort of the leaders of the project. And the employer, as it says in the project statement, is the hotel owner, and he wanted a more commercial appeal. So I think he had a lot more influence in what direction the project took.
But that was also an issue going forward that we didn't really know who we should listen to. Because should we take the hotel director into consideration? Should we go with his approach? Should we go with the approach of the museum leader?
So a difficulty there was also discussing our contribution to the project. We were we're trying to sell ourselves into it, talking about that we could do user research and prototyping and everything. And what they sort of landed on for us to do is to do the market research to see if people are interested in a Viking type museum experience. And they expected us to make a market analysis, basically. And so we had to analyze the cost of the project, and I think we were sort of free to do as we wanted, but we focused more on the research parts.
The first thing we did was, or the main task we had was a market analysis. And the first thing we did there was research papers on VR in tourism and in marketing. and in cultural settings. And we found that the VR medium was more convincing from a tourism standpoint, and despite the type of interest they had in culture or the age group, VR was more convincing than, like, for example, websites or images. One example where they have been using that is a hotel that has something they call VR room, that they let customers order a VR setup up to their room, and they can be immersed in different destinations and attractions.
It's like those VR postcards.
So the VR postcards. And from there, that could ease their decision in where they want to go and travel.
So you found that was very relevant to analysis, in order to use it as a marketing tool, because that was in line with what they sort of wanted. They wanted to market the region through VR, sort of.
Yeah, and VR gives you the decision you make is less trust-based. When you see images and descriptions, you have to rely on trust when you decide to travel somewhere. But VR can remove some of that. And yeah, it has many advantages. For example, you can go to unreachable places, things where tourists cannot, for example, walk, or
Maybe in our case, see things that are historical and you're able to see otherwise.
or see a thing hidden in walking graves, or I think that's, for example, if a building is undergoing restoration, for example, you can have a VR replacement. And yeah, it can give you unique interactions with objects that are otherwise fragile or can be touched, as well as provide infinite perspectives. And yeah, the authenticity is important in our setting, because yeah, historical accuracy is important, and the location of the VR setup can be important for authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity.
And one of the stakeholders was Kartverket, and they could provide us with map data. So thinking about using that for making a prototype that people will accept as a replacement for
showing like where we are in the landscape. Seemed like an important factor in implementing VR in the museum, to sort of use the areas around that would heighten the authenticity of the experience and help with the aforementioned points where you use it as a marketing tool.
And also one more the competition. You did some. There's several Viking-related museums and other attractions in Norway, but none of them use VR. But they have more.
And there have been several attempts to implement VR in museums, but not in the context we're showing, like showing the village. They tried more to show an actual museum in virtual reality with different appliances. Like you can see statues, you can see pictures, you can see animations, but not in the context like recreating an actual village. To get the immersive experience of VR.
So we separated that from the competition, is that they didn't have VR in the museum to show things that they rely more like acting and scripting events, like with costumes and that sort of.
Also, as a part, as a complement for the market analysis, there was made some social media research, searching for the keyword VR museum in most social media portals. And long story short, in the long run, it was a positive feedback which we got because most of the social media uh, campaigns were quite successful in the context, at least in different countries, research countries like UK, United States, Netherlands, and each of them they have different approaches, but they all use social media as a portal to enhance their popularity, at least in the new campaigns they're doing for VR.
So VR had a very broad appeal and could definitely be successful in that museum setting.
Also, that they have demos, but also they have concept videos, which they show in the social media portals.
After this, we did some user research of our own. Are you talking about it?
So we went to Vitensenteret in Gjøvik to find out how we could effectively make a good exhibition, look at how they did things. Also to look at potential users.
And what appealed to them? You know, adults more they like to challenging brain puzzles and stuff, and kids like to build stuff, and run around and play Kinect. Which was, I think, that was the closest we came to seeing like a VR type thing. It informed us, later when we discussed with the other stakeholders how they should set up, VR and what they should include.
At least in the user research, we're quite sure, like based on the papers that we have investigated, that there's a high percentage of positive feedback from engaging in virtual reality through museums. And but most of the population that was interviewed was from middle age to up. So
yeah,
we haven't had quite clear data on how young adults would receive it. But we're quite positive that they embrace more new technologies than the previous generations.
Yeah. And during our trip to Central Hotel, we talked with those kind of users, and we were originally set to do focus groups, but that didn't go as planned since nobody signed up. So we did group interviews of people that we recruited on the spot. And we showed them, like, as soon as we mentioned VR and allowed them to test that out, they were very excited. So we lured them with VR up to our conference room, and then we asked them some questions about it. It was very effective. And what we got from that is that they want to learn more about the historical aspects. They want the historically accurate picture of how things actually were. And they also sort of wanted to go, plundering and that sort of thing. We were more excited about the historical accuracy. That was more interesting for us. But plundering is fine too. But it isn't like there's not much background for it in anything yet. We also love plundering. Unfortunately. So, yeah. And we started putting together the analysis to hand it over to stakeholders. That took a lot of time. We had to do a cost analysis, which we were very clueless about. The numbers were very arbitrary. A lot of the things cost the same in our analysis, but probably not in real life. Yeah, we shared it with the stakeholders and the bachelor students. The stakeholders seemed excited about it, and they said, yeah, that looked good. We didn't get thorough feedback on it yet. And we had a final meeting with bachelor students where we discussed some of the things that we found. And they were more interested in developing ideas talking about the ideas for their projects going forward. So I think the stakeholders, in the tourism office are more interested in the market analysis, and it benefits them more. But yeah, they seem to like it. So yeah, this.
So the VR prototype, First we created the requirements. The requirements were done based on the actual demos that we played. Two demos were actually quite worth mentioning. One is the Lipolika VR Museum of Art, and the other one is the Virtual Reality Museum of Science. So both of them, they are available on the Steam market, and through testing different applications they have, we draw the conclusion that we could make three things in the prototype requirements. First one, the controller usage. So the user could be, besides being able to watch around, they should be able to use the controllers for anything that they want. These are the limitations that they have in the virtual reality. The other one is interactivity with objects. This also would require the future some 3D modeling, so the objects could be more accurate when trying to interact with them. But that's also another requirement we established when creating the prototype. They should be able to grab stuff, throw it around, or just interact with different objects around the environment. And the final one was teleport and move it around. So since it's going to be a big scenario, like a kind of like a village thing, and people should be able to move around, and because there's some space constraints, at least in some VR environments, we decided to implement the teleporting aspect.
Able to use to be able to explore the entire.
To explore it. Additionally, we wanted to implement NPCs, non-playable characters. Although this was a little bit less important than the three mentioned before, because these three focus mainly on how the user can interact with the environment, whereas the other is like part of the environment. It could be part of the setup that you can create.
So for designing the prototype, or to choose what we should prototype, because our project was revolved around finding out what idea we should, or the hotel should aim to proceed with. We kind of had to choose one thing to make a prototype of out of all those ideas. So we landed on something that could be turned into multiple ideas. So we decided on making a farm, like a typical Norwegian farm from around the Iron or Viking Age. So we had to find out what did that kind of farm look like. Usually it was very simple. They probably lived very close to their animals. Maybe they had a small fishing boat or were doing fishing on the side.
Yeah, and there are a lot of large farms around the museum, so that was a big part of the history there. So we could build it around that and make it sort of historically accurate.
Yeah. So for a final product, it would be very important for the assets to be historically correct. But in our case, we had to use assets from Unity, free assets, and they are not really that historically correct. We use log houses, and they were introduced in Norway at the end of the Viking Age or something.
Yeah, which for prototype purposes,
Yeah, so we
Cheated a bit.
we cheated a bit. So we found like a Viking village sample project on Unity, where there was like this huge village, and we stripped it down and only used the parts we needed. Building the farm, yeah.
At least one thing worth mentioning is that the design was made in the newer version of Unity, whereas the programming area was done in a later version. Like the design was made in Unity 5.6, and the programming part, the interactive design, interactivity was made in 5.5, and that consequently dealt with some texture problems, at least in the environment. And when trying to migrate the final project to the latest version of Unity, some scripting problems were presented because they didn't show, even though they were available there. But at least in the programming area, there were three scripts that were created. One was for the controller configuration. So any input the user puts in the controller is recognized by the program. The other one is interactivity with objects. So as soon as the player interacts with an object, he can just use the trigger button to grab it or throw it around, depending on the physics of the object and if it's like interactable. And the last one is for teleporting and moving around. First, you can use a laser to point at the spot where you want to move around.
And what we learned is that we wanted to, is that the prototype should probably be made early in the process, so that we could have used it at the hotel to showcase it and get feedback on it. Instead, we were more of a user-centered approach, where we wanted to get the requirements from the bottom up and get it from the users, instead of using the ideas that the stakeholders already had and the bachelor students. So it would have been better fit to maybe
At least the outcome we have, we could have used two roles, either doing the focus group a little bit later, so we could have had like a feasible prototype, or doing the prototype earlier, starting to build the prototype in an earlier stage, so that when the focus group was made, then they could have something in real life to test and to get more feedback about it.
I think that's it.
So displaying the
Prototype, yeah.
Okay, so you want to show us the prototype?
first, because of the graphical issues, I will just show how the village looks, and then we can jump into the VR.
Because it looks like a village with virus. Completely glitched.
So here we have we made a farm. It has a small dock. But it's difficult to move around here. With like a small, it's supposed to mimic a longhouse where you could build on, extend the house.
Yeah, the longhouse is very, very common during the late Iron Ages or Viking Ages.
Yeah. They might have had like a small field.
This is the role of farmers.
So this is like a small family's farm.
The small horse. There was a baby still growing.
You can- Huh?
So that's, to do
So
Is it connected to
you
the
want to
headset?
test it? I have to keep my hand here. So it stays.
I can travel around.
We should probably move away from the base station, by the way.
From there? Oh, it's a. It's a good track, yeah.
Yeah, the two bottom buttons.
So yeah, one. As you can see, the image looks quite. The texture is not good. The mountains are moving. That's a problem that came around the coding phase.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's either connected directly to the headset direction.
Right. It does appear that your mountains are connected to the.
Yeah.
They have children. They have been child.
No, that
camera.
one's the non no that
This one.
So we used to play the throw the cube to the horse.
So is it a massive bale of hay?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh, the horse stopped running. Nice. When it got through it, okay, now it's walking. Or is it just cycling through its animation?
Yeah, that's also
Okay.
another. luckily you haven't seen the glitch with the grass because you can also look the grass in the sky. But other than that, yeah, this is the basic prototype we created for moving around. Yeah,
That's so cool.
you're a Norwegian god, so
You're a Norwegian god. Okay.
Interaction.
That's a good classification.
But yeah, as you can see, the trees, the ceiling, everything looks quite quite rendered in not correct way. But I think with the version it could be enhanced with the next version. But I think that the programming should be done in the next version rather than the previous one.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lesson learned.
So it's an issue of moving between versions of Unity.
Yeah. When wanting to use the previous version, this is the problem, the texture. When wanting to use the next version, the newest one, you could not use the interactivity like work
Right.
like do movement with the hands or anything. Yeah. If anyone wants to test it, don't get it.
Do we have a type of questions?
Okay, so yes, I have time for questions. I've actually also written a short review thing for other people to fill in if they want to, but not with particular questions. So the questions, well, actually, I have some questions, but I will open up the floor to questions from other experienced reviewers.
The first thing I'm going to say that's really good that you learn that to make a prototype early. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's good for you and it's good for the client and good for the user. That's something that we learn all the time, over and over again. It's so easy to just start working and then not understand what you're working on.
Yeah.
But have you spoken to the hotel clients about this and have they made a decision what they want to do? Or?
No, they're still
That's the thing.
deciding. I think.
That's the thing. They're still deciding, so that's why we didn't have a clear direction, even at the middle of the course, where to how to make the prototype. So once we got like some little clues from the stakeholders, we just did like a prototype that they could just watch and see if it fits their requirements.
You'll continue to work with them after help them make a decision, or is
I think we handed it off to them.
So there's a bachelor group of students who will
They do.
continue to work. Yeah. So so this work, the report theoretically gets handed over to them, and they need to use that in conjunction with the stakeholders to make decisions. We have suggested to the stakeholders that student projects are great for ideas, but not great for commercial long-term fees. Like if you're going to actually put this in the museum, you need to test things and work things out, and then get a company to.
Yeah, I think one thing that can be done is make it historically accurate. So I think one of the things that the investors going to have to put their money on also is in a lot of 3D modeling, at least to make it into the context of the Norwegian village.
Yeah, so we're going to at least get some good pointers, I think. But Owen bets millions on this report.
Yeah, everything is well stated in the report that what they could do in the future. So it's clear.
So what do you think that the visitors are going to do there? I mean, if they come into that space, I guess they will have some purpose. Have you talked with the stakeholders about the purpose? Is it they'd like to go through a path to see some typical activities, or are they going to be involved in a certain activity? I mean, go behavioral around when not because we see kind of purpose here rather than just be around. So what kind of experience would the visitors be part of?
We were talking about being able to talk with, having interactions with farmers, where they could tell about how they live.
Yes, we had lengthy interviews with some of the users, and they told us what sort of experiences they wanted.
One of them was also blacksmithing, so they wanted to simulate if you're forging a sword or an axe.
Would it be a kind of tour guide, a person bringing you around, or would it be a map or places that you should
I think it would have pointers or pop-up messages that can input the user with feedback on what to do, like hints.
I think it's sort of both. Some users prefer to explore on their own, to see the village life, for example, and some prefer a more story told to them. So, yeah, for the mix.
Yeah, another one was also simulating rowing in a boat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
They were also trying to give those ideas. They had a bunch of ideas.
Here we do a real museum. In the real museum, we have snack and you can explore yourself. You can bring your headset with all you go on an audio tour, or there are certain point in time there are certain demos being given in certain places and other guys. So there are lots of elements in a real museum. And the question was whether some of these were more appropriate or less appropriate for that.
To use the museum, we have exhibitions, you think?
As you're saying, you need to satisfy different users. Some that would like to just stroll around and whatever comes to the past, they are happy. Some would like to go specifically to these places.
Yeah.
Some would be told and what to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Activities and for a regular museum, they offer all these in different packages. So you can sign up for a guided tour, or you can sign up for an audio tour, or you can just go around with our maps and everything. So, and some of them may be more valuable. I mean, for instance, in this case, you don't have to be at a certain point of time for a certain time. I mean, you may say that these are just shown at the top of the hour. In the real museum, you like to have groups coming in at a certain point in time because you don't want the professionals to be there all the time to do the same thing. So there are other differences between a VR museum and a real museum in terms of offerings.
Yeah. I figured that yes, the users have different preferences. We talked about actually connecting sort of the hotel to the museum, so that you would do like a historical tour around the landscape, for example, and that brings you to a task you have to do, for example, the blacksmithing or something like that. So it operates sort of outside the museum. It uses the landscapes more bigger. And yeah.
I also feel this prototype is more meant for a very early stage to show the users what it is to be like in a virtual world. So they get because a lot of people don't know what VR is, so you can use the prototype to show them what is possible. Or
Because what we wanted to know is that if they wanted to go back to that time and see what happened, they get something out of that at all.
Yeah, I think advanced users would like to interact or do different stuff in VR context because they already know how the landscape is about. But for most of the people that go in a museum, it's probably going to be their first or second or third time tops watching something in VR. So at least a good introduction to the immersive experience would be showing landscape around and they can just walk around. And then later, if people like, but they should be advised, like, oh, this is for advanced users or that you have already interacted with VR before. So there should be, there could be lots of options depending on the experience of the user. Any more questions?
Right. Why did you choose to do Unity over Unreal for this project? Because Unreal does, with at least the standard assets that you get, it does actually look better than Unity. So was there a specific choice why you chose Unity?
we had some familiarity with Unity from before, and we didn't really know the benefits of each.
Yeah, we never did like a in-depth research and at least in Unreal to see which assets are worth it. We mostly search in Unity, and since we were more accustomed to Unity, we used it as the engine.
Yeah, because there was actually a bachelor group that worked with Cartographic as well. They used Unreal. I think they did something around Carnivos. And that sort of made, it sort of had the feel just straight out of the box as being around the Middle Ages. So I think maybe if I want to spend less time, it's Unreal.
It's a good recommendation.
And the last question. So you had a couple of challenges of working out focus, right? So who are you working for? What is the historical focus? So what was your process for deciding which way to take the project? So did you have a unified process for making those decisions?
For choosing
Historical accuracy versus engagement, or choosing to follow a particular, the needs of a particular stakeholder?
Well, I think in the beginning it was weighted based on who was in the context, the stakeholder with the heaviest influence. So in that case, first which is in this case was the owner of the hotel, and he seemed quite interested, and plus he was going to invest in it, so I wanted to have the money.
But then after the visit to Sundvolden, it was clear that the users wanted historically correct experiences.
Yeah, we were letting the users decide. So
Yeah, at first we did some requirements. We added requirements for each project that which potential project. And when the stakeholders saw the requirements, they went more onto the way of historical accuracy.
Okay, good. No further questions. Thank you very much. And if you want to have a biscuit, homemade biscuit. For reviewing, because it's interesting to get feedback from other people, I put a Google Forms on bit.ly/IMT4310. Capital PRES, Press. Right? So if you've got a computer and you want to give these guys some feedback and evaluate them, and we can do this on you can do this on your phone. So it should be bit.ly/IMT4310 Press.
Be generous.
Did anybody get that? Find that link? PRES 4310. Yep, 4310.
What's the first question?
What? First question.
Reviewer.
Reviewer. Your name.
So you want my name, okay?
Or your pseudonym, if you want to be anonymous.
Right.
Okay, I'll put it in as an optional question. It's just for these guys, so I know when it's them reviewing. I can try and make that optional if you prefer that to be optional. There we go. I've made it optional. You don't have to put in reviewer name. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the next group up. Okay, yes. So the NTNU collaboration group want to come up and give their presentation. So do you have a computer you need to plug in?
No, absolutely.
Okay, so we can plug you in to this one here.
Yeah.
And that gives you a and you might need the asset. So, should we use the biscuits for after you're completed as a reward for having talked? These guys aren't talking, so they can have a biscuit. So these are New Zealand and Anzac biscuits. No, Afghan biscuits, not Anzac biscuits. These are Afghans. Yes.
Windows.
One? Yeah, but
She'll get one.
This is the idea.
Yeah. Well, those guys have had their job. So,
Yeah.
you get promoted. Once you talk, you become a VIP.
Thank you.
A very important presenter. Okay, so, did that recognize the screen? Oh, yes.
You have it.
Yep.
There we go.
Do I need to pull the screen down, or do you think on the whiteboard's fine? It seems fine. You're
Yeah.
right. I'm not getting any glare, but you guys are happy. That's why I ask.
Underway.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so right, we are running a wee bit behind because we started a wee bit behind, but that's okay. We are supposed to do the transition at 1:15, so we're 10 minutes behind, so that's fine.
I
Okay.
will try to be short.
Well, yeah, you've got your half hour and 15 minutes. So that's good. Okay, so you've got your presentation stick. Excellent. Does it work? Nope. It won't work if he hasn't got it in focus.
Yeah, I know.
So
Just ignore it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah, it
Okay.
works.
Yeah, it works. Woo.
Yeah, so we're the VR Lab group. Our objectives was we wanted to allow anybody with a VR headset to spectate a VR recording through 6 degrees of freedom. Future perspectives in higher education lectures and remote meetings are to better engagement and presence and immersion and the interaction between people. For our use case, we focused on the higher education lecturers. So the lecturer can create a recording of the lecture, and then the student can replay that lecture later on. And we're currently developing this in the VR meeting space that we just developed.
So yeah, there will be. There are some forecasts that there will be a constant increase of in the VR market towards the next 10 years, more or less. So, but there is some strange mechanism because customers and enterprise need more VR application, but in order to invest, to be, motivated to invest on VR technologies. But if there is no community, there is no interest in building hardware as well. So it's like a circle that people doesn't do stuff and developer doesn't do stuff. And there should be some point people who starts making application for the sake of testing them and try them out and put them on the market and see the community is alive and there is interest. So that's what we are also trying to achieve here in this university context. This context of higher education might be very helpful to develop new application and to try out the technology, even though it's not as cheap as it can be to be really viable. But there are first steps towards the mass use of VR. There are also they start to be some new niches of the market for some kind of VR application concerning recordings and replaying stuff. And there is a company called Virial, which does this stuff of streaming, recording, playback as their primary work. So they do it for a living, basically. So and apparently there is interest in
this kind of recording and playback in gaming, for example, but also it can be used. This kind of interest is also in the healthcare or education or military, for example. There is also in the movie industry there is some interest in the VR technology, even though there is not a clear pattern on how the movie industry wants to use these technologies. So people are still trying to experiment a lot and see what might be interesting for the audience, and in particular being able to have 6 degrees of freedom in a movie, for example, or while replaying the movie, might be a new way to enjoy movies and games and stuff. 6 degrees of freedom means that you are in the movie and you can move around and look at 360 degree, not only spectate what the director wants you to see. You don't have anymore the frame, which was the major constraint in the normal movie in a normal movie display. And also there are some research, even though it might be a bit old now, but it looks like participating in VR meetings or participating in settings where there are other avatars other than you in VR space influences your feelings and your way to perform accordingly to how the feedback from the audience is. So if the audience is supportive, then you have positive feelings. If the audience is not supportive or is against you, then you start developing some negative feelings, and you feel that you're not in control of the situation, like in a real life settings. So all this consideration might be seen in the perspective of using VR technologies for supporting meetings and lectures in higher education, for example. And for this reason, we developed our system, which is basically a set of features added to the previous VR meeting tool that has been made by Nicholas, and which supports recording and replay. And Johnny will talk about it.
Yeah, so some of the features that we were able to implement was recording of the actor in the VR space. The basic functions is start and stop of the recording, and we were planning to implement pause, but we did not.
Yeah, so you can start recording, but you can't pause it while the recording goes somewhere else. Continue recording.
So how this works is it takes the controller palm and it gets the location of the head and the two hands from the motion controllers. And for every server tick, it will store this information in an array as a struct. We're not sure if it's every server tick or it's every frame rate, but it looks very smooth when we're playing it. So. And the other function is the replay function. It has a start and stop function. It gets the positions from the array from where we stored it in the recording function. And you can also manage the play speed to play it fast forward or rewind it to if you miss something from the lecture or something like that. Yeah.
So we made a UI for the controllers.
Yeah.
UI design.
Yes, basically we did like a brief research about the controls for recording playback. This kind of icons are used frequently on remotes for VCR, DVD player, CD player. So it was not that difficult to understand how to convey this kind of information because most likely the mental model for this kind of playback feature is already pretty much known from this kind of remotes. The thing was how to implement this UI in the VR space. So we could have built a completely virtual set of commands in the virtual space, but we found out that the thumbstick, the trackpad button is already radial and it tracks the position of your thumb. So we thought it was a good idea to apply to the trackpad all the functions and map them through some function that.
Yeah, so then we do is like take one of the controllers and take Nicholas's code and just override it with our own. So when the trackpad functions happen, we take the position of x and y. This is actually a unit circle, more or less. So we just check if you press the inside button, you just take that position and then make a vector to it, and then you just check the length. And if it's under a certain length, then you're inside. And to calculate, if you're on these buttons, you have to do first normalize that vector, so it becomes 1, and then you take the x value and do cosine inverse, and then you get the angle. And then this one is because the result you get is it's divided like here, so the value will be 0 here, and then it'll be 180 there, and it will also be like 90 here and 90 there. So this one is, if it's 45, less than 45 degrees, you press this button. If it's more, or it's over 135 degrees, it's this button. And for these, you just check it's between 135 and 45 degrees, and then you check if it's this one, the y-axis is minus, and for this one, it's positive. So that's how we do those. It was started tasking in the beginning because we tried to do radians, but that didn't work as well. And there was some stuff with because there were two functions to get positions values, but when one of them had x y plus as this way, and the other one has y plus as that way, and it didn't have that much to say because you would square it anyway, but
the reason why the controls are on the border of the UI, it's because we try to map them as much near as possible to the border of the trackpad, since basically the user is blindfolded by the visor. So the only reference point they have on the trackpad is at the border they can feel with their thumb. So in order to prevent them to misclick some button, because if the UI goes like this, I can have my thumb here, and it changes my control, the control I'm pressing, and they don't know. So that's they should have more control around here, while the play and pause button, which are supposed to be the most used one, are in the biggest area.
You can get the hover position of the thumb on the trackpad. So do you use that?
No, it's only when you press it down, but it is the hover position.
Yeah, the hover, because then you can highlight the button you were about to press.
Yeah, but then we have to make all the.
But there's a whole bunch more assets to make.
Yeah, it could be. So we also implemented some range stuff. So screen position. All right, I can do the range. First, if you're outside or too far away from the recording, you'll get the decal that spawns. So we just do a vector between you and the person and check the length again. So if this one is, I think you're 5 meters away from the recording automatically pause, because it does the check each tick, and then if it doesn't, if you're not inside, it just drops out. So yeah, we just set a decal to be visible, and it's just attached to the recording.
Yeah, and also the recording stops playback when you're outside the limit. And also if you're not viewing the character that's in the recording, it will stop by converting the first space into the screen space, so you only focus on the part that you actually see in your VR glasses. So that's to prevent people just running around, not following the lecture, and actually have to focus on the object.
Yeah, that's a first attempt to deal with the biggest problem in like playing back stuff in VR, and which is something that in the cinema industry they're trying to figure out, because you don't have a fixed point of view. You cannot impose a fixed point of view. That's why you use VR. So, but the problem is that how the user is aware of what is going on, right? So what if they're there, but they're not paying attention whatsoever? They're completely losing their the experience. So this is kind of halfway between constraining the point of view and leaving complete freedom. They can still move around and do stuff, but at least they don't lose the context.
Yeah. Something we didn't do under the limitations of this project is the memory. Currently, there's no limit, and the array will just fill up all your memory on the computer till it crashes. So that's got to be fixed.
So yeah, and there's also, because currently we're just checking if you're inside the bound of the view. So you can be like a mile away, and you're still within the bounds. So, and there's also like, if you're behind an object, you're still within your view, so technically it's good to play. So there's like some stuff you can do on that side, like doing a ray trace between you and the recording, and then you get into, if you have a transparent object, that still counts. So there's like, there are a lot of stuff you can do more with, if you're inside view or not. So you didn't really get around to doing. And there's also the audio, which is kind of experimental in Unreal, or like at least the type of way we wanted to do it, because we wanted to be able to import audio recording and then be able to do the same playbacks and rewinds, stuff as you can do the movies. But if we tried to do an MP3 format, but that kind of didn't work, because we couldn't get it to work, because you have to make an audio media source, and then you have to put that into your media player, and it kind of expects there to be a video file that it can run. And so then in the end we kind of just added a MP4 file, and then just added to like a billboard on top of the character, but then set the billboard to be invisible, so then it just plays the audio. But there's also like problems with the audio source. It has a static path, or you can make it dynamic, but then you'd have to replace the file name each time you were doing something new. So we kind of didn't explore that too much.
For future work, we have some features that we have put some thought in, and we have explained a little in the report. But they didn't have time to do is saving and exporting the recordings, so that a lecturer can distribute the recordings to his students, and they can launch the VR and watch it. Currently, the recordings are only stored in the session you're currently in, so it's not worth that much. Interaction with elements. When the recording is interacting with elements now, you can see it because we didn't implement a function to actually grab the ID and the position vectors for the elements. Also, importing assets could be very helpful. Having 3D models imported into the space for showing off.
Also, we wanted to improve visibility, because when the recording is kind of gray-headed and with the same terrain, you kind of can't see it sometimes. But it's kind of hard to notice. That's kind of why Niklas says that the whole coloring the heads. But one of the things we thought might be possible also to do is like create an outline material, so that you can like see it through walls and stuff like that to make it more visible. So that's also possible for us to do. Bringing the visibility of the recording.
Yeah, but this consideration about future works and issues came out from the brief testing we had with a couple of users, and also from the picture we had of the finished prototype of product. And as a direction designer, we had more together with the programmers, of course. We had, since we are working on an ongoing project, most likely, hopefully it's an ongoing project. So this VR meeting tool, which has been developed, probably will be used next years or by somebody else and improved over the years. We thought that it was more valuable right now to provide some documentation about it and to provide a solid ground for future development rather than streamlining and improving more and more our prototype. So a big part of our effort was putting down the conceptual basis for future development. And basically the documents coming out from our work will hopefully be useful more than future people who will work on the system rather than for this particular project. So, for example, we made a conceptual model not for the product, the prototype, but on the Unreal game engine itself, because as we experienced interaction designer, who never used to work with a game engine, it can be tricky just understanding what's going on there and how to communicate better with what is a pawn, what is an action, what is a method. We didn't know this. So what we learned, we want to give it back to other interaction designers who work. And same thing for the other ones. The hierarchical task analysis, for example, we made a big hierarchical task analysis for letting the future people working on this to see where it needs still to be improved, and both the prototype but also all the VR meeting tool itself. So it might be easier now to add the tasks to the one which have been already covered by us and by Niklas, for example. That's what our legacy to the whole ongoing project. So I will show you briefly what was this stuff about. Okay. Okay. It's not. We are still the technical issue. Yeah, it's working out.
Yeah.
I have
Can we fix this again?
Can you see both if you bring them both up?
No, the problem is
No,
it's
that one's a new controller.
Okay.
showing 3 controllers.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's paired with another one.
Yeah.
Right. So
Okay.
identify. Okay.
Sorry, not.
Yeah.
Mm.
And compare that one.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have this.
That one,
Yeah.
that one. So just get rid of the other one you can't see. No, not that one, that one. Yeah, can't get rid of it.
Yeah. How do you?
Oh.
No. No. Yeah. That's kind of fun.
So you can't restart Steam VR.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the story of our project.
Right.
So we had this kind of problem every time.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
No, I don't think so, but
Bye now. Okay. Yeah.
looks like.
I don't think you're the only ones in the world who have.
No,
problems with
of course, of course. Okay, yeah.
There's a discussion on whether it's actually ready for prime time or not.
So yeah, basically it's there is nothing to see apart from me doing random stuff. So as you see, you have the controller. Now it will not play anything because there is no recording. But if I start recording myself, doing some random stuff, like doing some random stuff,
You can probably jump away as well.
probably.
And step backwards.
And,
yeah. Table is good.
if I play it, I can see myself doing planning stuff. Now it looks like it's yeah, if I stop the recording and I move away and I play it, I'm outside, so it's not working. If I go in, then start over again, and I can pause, play, and I can go back until the beginning and fast forward. So now this doesn't look like something that might be useful some for something, but the thing is like we might need to think like in the most advanced version of this feature, probably the avatars will be more detailed, the graphic will be more detailed, and hopefully the meeting leader or the lecturer could have a way to interact with objects. So you can just pick the stuff, enlarge it.
So when you put record,
yeah.
What happens when you play back that, what you're doing?
Oh yeah, you can show them.
So if you hit record now, and then hit record,
Uh-huh.
so record yourself doing
record,
stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah, record yourself picking up the blocks.
Yeah, it won't record the block.
Right.
And now if I just say like, yeah, you see this,
Yeah.
and I just stop the recording, and I can drop this here and here, and just play, you see that it's me grabbing some invisible stuff and showing that. So I can't quite understand that something is going on, but the recording of the object is not in place still. But imagining that you can actually interact with objects, enlarging them, shrinking them, opening them, closing them, and stuff like that, then you can read and also, of course, having some sort of audio recording. You can actually explain stuff through showing virtual objects. And this might be very useful for remote learning, for example. And with this tool, you don't have to be in the same place or even at the same time to have some sort of interaction. Of course, it's a recording, but still, the information I convey as lecturer or team leader are much more rich in interaction because the person can see my body language, can hear my voice, can actually go near me and see what I'm doing. So this is the concept that should somewhat enhance remote collaboration and remote meeting. So this is a feature that has to be added to the current VR meeting tool, and it's just the first step towards this stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And,
Thank you.
Okay.
So, questions from the committee?
I have one question. When I see this, and I mean, we're working on a tool that is also incorporates some of this, and we're working with games for many years. And when you record something into you have a lot of data, and then what's really good to have is an editor to manipulate the data afterwards. So then an editor could record something, and then you can add to it, subtract from it, and have like, so that should be, in my mind, like a big goal to have like an editor to help out making this useful over and over again. Yeah.
Definitely.
And also that maybe you could, so lots of opportunities because you can control the character without actually being VR.
We were discussing this feature with Simon last time, and we were saying like most likely it's you're not recording everything in the VR space, right? Because you might want to review what you did, and maybe you want to edit the audio you've input. So there should be something that helps you to stick all these pieces together to build a proper recording. And once you did, you can reuse that material over and over again or update it in parts or completely, and as it's like a teaching material, right, in a lecture setting. But even if you have a meeting and you have to collaborate with a remote team, and I have time only today because I'm full, my agenda is full for the next week, so that I record myself asking questions, doing something, and then I just send my recording to other people. So this is, of course, a scenario that might happen in the next years with the technology being more viable and cheap, hopefully. So you cannot expect everybody to have a VR needs to survive in their home so far or in their office. But it's something that at least the market analysis and show that it most likely is going to happen. So this is all future perspective.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of follow up this making these types of prototypes or demos is to limit yourself. You have to try to sell a small story through or sell a small thing. That's only part of the whole concept, and you can't have everything. Are you happy with your choice of story here, with the stuff that you're trying to sell here?
I mean, it could have done much better, but yeah, of course.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it seems to be a bit diffuse. Yeah, you have this general prototype for doing something, but you don't have a very strict story about the unique little thing that you are going to sell by doing this.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, it's actually a bit difficult to explain the reason for having such a tool without explaining what is the context around it, right? Because I cannot sell the story of fact, yeah, we are recording this cool and you can build up stuff with that. Of course. But the important thing here is I think like to explain why VR meeting should be an important stuff. Recording is just a step further. So yes, of course, having a bit of storytelling would have helped a lot. Just telling a little story about why a teacher should actually record himself and send the recording. That's definitely true. Next time, it'll be better.
So, like in your master's thesis, which you will have to present. This is a good dry run for getting some feedback. So, one of the questions we have is would you, as a student, want to have content in this format in the future?
Depends on the content.
Okay, so the follow-up question is, what kind of content do you think would fit?
I can imagine something that has to do with like advanced models would be beneficial. You can't really like drag in a house or something in the real world. Yeah, I mean like you probably wouldn't use like standard old math or something like that. Yeah, it's like some have some examples that where we had like heart models, stuff like that. I think that's in this environment.
For example, in genes or very complex stuff which is very miniaturized, you cannot actually understand many processes because they are small. But if you can enlarge a model and explain what is going on in a model, still having the model, so it's just the big picture of it, then it might be much more useful than having some printouts, basically, and trying to figure out how the pieces are together. I'm interested in mechanics, so it's hard to understand how a valve works in an engine if you don't see the whole picture of the engine, for example. And that's for this kind of very technical and small stuff, even in biology, for example, might be very, very actually exciting to try out and see the stuff, how it works, much more than seeing it printed out on the paper.
What about big stuff like stars and planets and so on? Or like actually for math, it would be good because you can actually, like for geometry, you can actually display things. You can talk about the geometry in 3D rather than in a book. And geometry would be a perfect thing to explain within that.
That could be actually the first use case.
So would we create learning objects of this type? And what would the learning object repository look like, do you think?
I think it would work, or it could, or we would, in the cases where you would have extra value, because it will be more costly. So costly, so there would be some extra value. And I think it's still unknown where this extra value will go to. It's definitely in construction. And especially if you do construction, do 3D printing and have that whole thing, it makes sense. In general, I think get some more abstract concepts, maybe visualize in different ways, but typically they are better in simple way, visually communicating and training.
Just the point there was, if you need assets, lots of assets for the educators or anyone to present something in VR, for it to be feasible to use it in an easy way, right? But that's happening. It's like the PowerPoint that I made before, when people have their cameras and everything, and mobile phones now you can do everything much quicker to get assets into presentation. So with VR, you need to have more assets available, and so I think it's the right direction, but you need to have more assets available for people creating the content and presentations. Yeah, that will happen. It's just another really more big tools and ways for everything.
And you're getting 3D scanners, which are getting easier and easier to use. So, questions from the audience? No? Okay, thank you very much. Cookies. You get cookies. Completion cookies. Thank you. Yes, we should have a short break. I think a 10-minute break. So 10-minute break, seeing it's now 2 o'clock exactly, so see you back here at 2:10. Okay. Okay.
Who's next?
Hmm?
Who's next?
Who's next? Well, we either have chemistry or time. We can be next.
Maybe chemistry would be
Chemistry.
a nice transition.
Okay, yep.
Since we're now kind of talking about education. And
Yep,
learning.
education. Excellent. So we'll see you guys in
Yeah.
10 minutes. Yep. And then you get your cookie. Oh. Freshly made last night by Rachel.
Ska vi logga oss på Drive eller tränger det en USB?
Det är nej.
USB? Jag har en USB.
Ja, då tar du en USB då.
Har du en USB på med den grejen?
Jag har lite på om jag kan hoppa ut. Eller vi kan bara logga på Drive. Eller vi kan bara logga på.
The crunch is from
When he makes cookies, we go away. It's like
They made it local material.
Cookie Monster does exist. Somewhere.
When we're doing the prototyping, so that maybe I can do most of the talking and then we do what I say.
Yeah.
For example.
And if I have something to add, I'll just add.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that way I finally have something to say. Because I don't have any other slides anymore.
Yeah.
Since Eskil took my parts in the programming as well.
Okay, well,
yeah.
sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
Less things to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've practiced a few things in my head as well. Can get through everything. One thing after another. As well as discuss.
So are you going to explain how the room works?
Yeah, I'm going to start with explaining about the teleportation and grabbing. Then start with the do the same as we did. Students start with the blocks.
Yeah.
Under the table.
Start
Ja, men det gjør noe som utvikler. Start with the box under the table and then start creating basic molecules and then the more advanced molecules that flow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe creating the water molecule first.
Yeah, exactly.
The methane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was my idea. Because then they get the caramel water as well as present all of the.
Yeah. By the way, which way does it go now?
You can always remember the size because the size is the
oh yeah.
So the big one is the medium one is carbon, small one is better.
Yeah.
So it's the same as if the atomic scale.
Yeah.
Because I can't actually remember anything more that this was changed color so many times. But I think the red one is oxygen. Black is carbon and white is ice.
Well,
if that was the case, and remember how to explain why as well, because the difference in the
Isn't this going to
This wetness.
Why are we using
because we're developing it for Norwegian. We were testing it.
University have to go to the
yeah, but
this was high school. In the full work, we could release two pictures, for example. One for Norway and one for
that's sure they
have you tried internationalizing it? You could internationalize it.
Yeah, you can just create basic versions. Yeah. The problem is that it's the material that has to be changed every time. So,
really?
Yeah, the material. That's where the color is needed.
I do need to change material.
Because
yeah, I don't remember what it's
noen forskjellige atomer i en sånn molekylær semisett.
Ja, i farger på sånn.
Ja.
Ja, det er skamfeil.
Yep. Så Norge har noen farger, Storbritannia også har andre farger. Ifølge Wikipedia og kjemilæreren så står det. Så jeg følte Wikipedia, engelsk Wikipedia, for jeg trodde at det skulle være sånn. Da klagde kjemilæreren så jeg måtte spørre på engelsk.
Are we still doing it like this? We're gonna have the tutorial in the middle of the presentation.
I actually think that's a good way of doing it. Because then we show them what we are talking about.
Yeah.
And then we talk about, okay, so this is the feedback and this is the way forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
So
when we leave it to the end, people are like, oh yeah, we're done with the presentation. So.
Yeah, because then I can talk about the implementation while I'm talking about the tutorials.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't present it. Because now they're getting used to.
Well, now it says begin tutorial. Oh yeah, I mean like afterwards. We'll just never stop talking then.
Yeah.
They'll never clap.
Yeah.
Don't say it. That's it.
Exactly.
Pause.
Yeah.
the servers are like, everybody's in the program. Yeah, I also use it.
Actually, I know.
Yeah.
You want to be able to open the window?
Yes. Well, maybe. No, I have no idea.
Probably not.
No.
Not those ones, not that one.
No. No.
Not those ones. It might be like smart cards.
Jag tänkte jag skulle stå.
Och vad är det Erik? Och vad är det?
No, I think it's too far to cold.
Det får vara en short.
Är vi alla? Is everyone here? Am I like doing the...
Yeah.
So they are over
Single. Right. So what I was going to do is, find that.
You took the old one.
Yeah, you opened the, no.
Why have you...
No, this is the old one. From
They are... It is.
Hey.
Yeah, that was
Well, if I change it to 4-3, you won't go. Yeah.
That's probably better. Yeah, why do you always make it no one uses that system anymore?
All of this is in the way. Like it would have been awesome.
Right, yeah, problem fix it. That's what we do. Okay, right. So we are now at 10 past 2, which is what I said to be back at. Right. So we now have our third group, the VR chemistry group. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself and your project.
Yes. So we've been working on a educational tool in VR, focusing on chemistry. So we, first of all, we spent a long time deciding on a project, but VR was something, it's a component that everyone in our group hadn't worked with before, so we knew that we wanted to work in VR. And then we also found some good ideas in terms of educational VR, wanting to focus on that. But it's also, and then we went on to chemistry. So we have education chemistry, and that's because there are certain elements of chemistry that needs to be visualized, but it's difficult with traditional methods. And we felt that that could be a component where VR could bring in some additional learning to the students. So for example, we did also some research on the benefits of using VR in education. And some of the benefits are that it's active rather than passive experience. Immediate engagement is useful in today's world of limited attention spans. Exploration, hands-on approach makes learning and retention easier. So there are several benefits of having VR as a tool in education. We decided upon a user-centered design approach because this is a field where none of us really have a lot of experience. None of us, well, really did much chemistry in high school, and we really needed to follow user-centered approach to have the necessary information to build a system that can be used in the education system. With the help from Omakare, one of our colleagues is a chemistry professor, and he was very interested in VR and using that as an educational tool. So he's been one of our collaborators throughout the project, guiding us towards which aspects of chemistry that VR that we could implement into VR, and helped us narrow down the requirements for the system. So for the implementation, this is how we went from a conceptual to a physical design. So we used the user research so we did a questionnaire that we distributed to Nannestad High School, where we got some feedback from the students on their learning experience in chemistry, what type of models that they used, and whether or not they were comfortable using the type of digital learning tools in their education. So we created a conceptual model to better understand the requirements that we needed in the system. And then we also created agile user stories to make the requirements about the user and the user need inside of the system for them to achieve the overall goal. And then
During our programming development, we started using the Ray Winterwich tutorial. It's the same approach as the other VR Unity group used. And this became kind of our basic of our application. So we hit some challenges during this, and because in the tutorial and VR generally, you want to play around with the objects, throw them around, etc. We didn't want that. We didn't want to have throw objects because it would distract the students when they were trying to build molecules, etc. So we hit some problem during our physical or the physics of the engine and our beliefs of how we would want it. So when you grab an object, you need the velocity. But if you give it a little velocity and let it go during the controllers, it will carry on the velocity. So we have to stop that velocity, but at the same time you have to contain the physics of the object, because else we couldn't attach the objects together as a binding atom and make that feel interactable and natural. And also the collisions, etc., was kind of difficult to deal with, because we had to know where the collision happened, and we didn't actually want to do ray casting because it's a virtual reality environment, and we were afraid of the performance. We managed to solve it in the end, but it was kind of a hacky solution, but it worked. It worked okay. Then we came up on some other problems with the bindings, but we're gonna show it later on.
And also, that I forgot to say, that we narrowed it down to be able to build molecules and see reactions in VR. So that you get the context. So it's about building molecules.
Yes, we planned a user test with student users and also teachers. So we planned a test script, test plan with the scripting and divided roles. So we had one test moderator. We had one observant looked at the user himself, and one observing the screen. And we looked at body language and hesitation, every side of it actually. And also some of us were overseeing technical equipment, taking care of that. The test moderator instructed the participant, and first giving us a short tutorial to let them know the equipment and headgear and stuff. Most of them had never been into VR before. And we recruited students at Nannestad, I guess. We tested on 5 students and 3 teachers. Yes.
So we did. So what we looked at was also to see. We also did a post interview, so that we could get the overall impression in terms of satisfaction using the system. The test subjects were a bit skewed because we had more boys than girls. And the boys in general, it's always difficult when introducing a system such as VR in usability testing, because they're so impressed by VR in general that actually testing the system sometimes you don't really get the feedback that you wanted. But we had a girl at the end, and she wasn't that known it like with gaming and the consoles or anything. And then we actually got some more constructive feedback because she wasn't that overwhelmed by being in VR for the first time, although she loved it. But yeah, it's also nice to get that.
Yeah, and we decided to go to the users to do this testing because it was not that large test. So we felt since there's sort of a distance to Nanta, that we found that we couldn't bring them here just to do a very short test. So it was better to go to them, and yeah, they were really pleased to be part of it.
And it's also managing expectations. It's also very important. So if they were to come here and so we wanted them to know that this is an early prototype, and but it went really well, I would say. We got some really good feedback. The chemistry teacher, he was very, very happy with what we had done.
He said, "This is what I asked for. Okay, we can use this as it is." But of course, he was aware of this is an early prototype and bugs there. But they were really pleased and happy, and he really wants to keep on collaborating.
So we will now show you, basically what we asked the students to do during the user test, so you can see what the systems, where we're at this point.
I should also point out that this is not the end of the presentation, so don't like
Yeah, we'll have some results in the future work after this.
The feedback from user testing, and then what basically needs to be done to move forward with the prototype.
Headset not connected because headset isn't.
It's working perfectly. It's just complaining.
VR, problem free.
But Edgar, which molecules will you create? Will you do the Matan one?
Yeah, we have a plan.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, this is the room that we made. It's based on the tutorial that we found at ravenvillage.com. The designers changed the colors of the room quite a bit because they weren't really satisfied with how it looked.
Yeah, the idea was that we wanted the room itself to be dark and anonymous, so that the molecules were the only focal point, and in terms of interaction, what they're building, so that the background wasn't distracting to what the users were doing. So that's the reason behind.
Yeah, we only have two functions in here: grab and teleport. Erika has already teleported back and forth a bit, as you can see. The boxes underneath are the boxes that were used in the original tutorial. They can be thrown around. They
actually have gravity too, unlike the other object we have here.
Yeah, and you can actually throw them around the time as well. So if you throw them to the other side of the room. And throwing away a bit of it was removed early in the stage of development, but we put it back after the user testing because the students were a bit disappointed that they couldn't throw something away because they wanted, for most people, it would be the first time they use VR, so they want to have something to play around with.
Okay.
On the table there, you can see lots of different things, and balls are all atoms, so it's carbon atom or black ones, red are oxygen atoms, and white is hydrogen. They don't have any other indicators as of now, so that would be in a future implementation. The bindings, as you can see on the bottom here, white cubes, they can attach at each end to the atoms so that you can create molecules from them.
And they should be cylinders, but it's just a early prototype.
But didn't want to become cylinders, basically.
Okay, so start making a molecule.
Yeah, so start by creating a water molecule, for example.
Okay.
That's red for oxygen and white for hydrogen.
So, one oxygen.
As you can see, the placement of the bindings are not exact because they didn't want to do that either. That's but we had problems fixing throughout the development, and we still haven't properly fixed them. But it's more than good enough for a tutorial, at least, to show what it can and can't do. You can, after put it together, you can rotate the entire structure, and you can also pull them apart from each other by dragging them apart. In which case, sometimes it's if you grab two binding things and leaving an atom in the middle, it will float off.
But
Yeah, and finally there is a rather particular amusing bug that we wanted to show
yeah,
you.
we want to show this one.
Chemistry is really invented.
Yeah.
Okay, so first.
And so just need to take several bindings. Not actually that. So if you put multiple bindings on separate sides of the atom, then the physics of each binding will affect the atom slightly differently, and it will show a bit of resonance, as you can see.
And when I put the actual atoms here. Okay, now it's more stable again.
It can be a bit random as well, whether it wants to behave or not.
But the reactions were really good at it hanging in the air. Oh, it hangs in the air! And wow, they liked that.
If you just add more bindings, it should collapse again.
And creating this molecule was the chemistry professor wanted to make it. So we hadn't planned on making this molecule, but by making this one, that's when we kind of discovered bugs like this one.
Yeah. Yeah, well now it's kind of exploded.
Yeah.
It seems even more spectacular.
Yeah. The first time we actually discovered this was when the chemistry teacher that we showed this to tried it, and every single part disappeared from the screen outside of the room.
Kind of exploded everywhere.
Spectacular.
Actually exploded.
Yeah. The annoying part is that it shouldn't have been an explosion because it was a perfectly stable methane molecule.
But it is the sort of thing you could simulate.
Yeah. Yeah, so it shows future potential for explosions. But yeah, that's.
But then also, one of the reasons why we wanted to work with the molecule visualization is also because some of the molecules are very complex, very big, and we think that the VR can make that visualization and the work with the models much easier in terms of duplicating several to make the long chains in terms of when you go into organic chemistry, for example, which is much more huge constructions, basically, of molecules to kind of visualize the reactions.
Okay. Yep. And visualization.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it's supposed to.
Is yours, I think? No?
No.
Well, I'll do it then. Yeah, so the findings, of course, we discovered the bug that we just demonstrated to you. So the more complex and more parts are in the molecule, the more unstable they become. So that's something. Other things they were looking for was there were some things in terms of that they weren't connecting exactly to each other, and that they were like, are they together now? And when they pulled them apart, it was difficult to kind of see where they were. So some of the feedback we got was having like a place to put the bindings, so that it is because the bindings are how many bindings you can make is determined on how many electrons you have in the outer shell. So having those kind of placements already there will be more intuitive in terms of building. And how many bindings you can have in search of single, double, triple, etc. And what we found was that the interaction in itself were very intuitive. They didn't spend a lot of time figuring out how to build molecules. It was very easy for them to understand. We used the metaphors of building with Lego and magnets in terms of pulling them apart together, and that made it much easier for them to learn how to interact with the system. The learning curve for everyone was about the same. It was very fast. Some made more errors than others, but that didn't affect the learning curve. Satisfaction levels, high. They were very happy, very pleased. Thought it was so much fun. We were worried because we thought that our test was a bit too simple and easy. But managing expectations is important when usability testing. So we got there might be some satisfaction related to the VR rather than the system, but at least the chemistry professors and the other teachers, they were very satisfied with what we had done and saw the potential in using this for further use.
And then something about future work, how we go, how this project would go forward. So we found we already thought about a lot of features to add to this that we just didn't have time to implement. And we also found that user testing brought out the same kind of features again. So one thing is labeling the atoms, for example. Now you just have to know which one is which. And also labeling when you constructed something, labeling what it is. So getting feedback on that. And ability to work in sequences, so you could save, load constructions, and you could bring spawn pre-made components and pre-made molecules, and also adding some kind of scoring system, achievements, trophies. It would be an interesting way to, well, it would be a way to make it more interesting. And yeah, education. Yeah. And then we thought about future challenges for the project. So one thing is formalizing the collaboration with the chemistry teacher, who was very enthusiastic about this. He wanted us to continue on this, continue working on this. Hopefully, hope that it's gonna continue. So some kind of formalized collaboration with them would be a way to go, or finding some other collaborators if necessary. And of course, creating a user base, which means we'd have to be part of easing the adoption of VR in education. So
and having a collaborator then would make that easier to kind of have a starting point for a user base that
yeah.
we can test the system on and develop the system with.
Yeah. For now, it's still, of course, the equipment is expensive, but there's potential to adopt it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Right. So.
I like this a lot because it shows the potential of VR to use it to visualize things that are normally used, just sort of to get a piece of paper. And when you see it in 3D or play with it, it is amazing. Have you thought about other uses like chemistry? Since I mean you've been playing with this now, it's been in your head for a long time. Have you thought about
other uses than chemistry?
Yeah, like I can say networks, like virtual networks. That's in my mind because it's similar kind of construction. You see in 2D with a computer programmer, but for other people, to my mind at least, it seems like a sensible thing to see in 3D.
And we did talk about like anatomy was one of the things that was brought up in our initial design work. The first idea actually when we went into chemistry was a virtual lab environment, which was something that the teachers were a bit more negative towards because they wanted the students to have the real lab experience in terms of safety and those kind of things that sometimes is forgotten if you're in a safe environment, but they need to teach them that as well.
And there's actually a few existing VR applications already for that, those kind of lab, more realistic lab environments.
Better way of doing what you're doing, not being like focusing on other things.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to simulate the real world. I think that was kind of our mission, that we didn't want this to, why create a VR lab when they have VR facilities, and those are real facilities for lab work. So we wanted to bring the potential of what can VR allow you to do that you cannot do in real life, and how can that benefit education?
I'm just thinking about, the drawing program in VR.
Mm.
Like the first time you use that, and you suddenly people start using it, and then you can walk behind you, and you don't see the look on the faces because of the glasses. It's not, you realize that, oh my God, you are actually walk behind and do my thing.
Yeah, we noticed some of that as well with the students we tested on when we told them they could rotate the instructors.
So don't be afraid to move around.
Yeah.
Everyone was very static, and they were only using one hand. So I go, remember that you have two hands. It will make things easier. And they're, oh yeah, sure, okay. So, and then, when we wanted to pick up stuff, they tried to do just stand like this and pick them up. No, you have to go down and pick it up. So there were these things. So it was kind of, when they got into it, it was very fun to see because they learned so quickly. And I think that's.
What kind of pedagogical ideas do you get together with the teachers by doing this? I mean, I could see obvious gaming scenarios where you do things on time, and maybe it starts to get very nervous the longer you play, so you have to finish faster. How do you discuss that?
No, well, his main concern was to be able to rotate and to examine complex bindings, sort of, or molecules, and because his experience was that students had difficulties to understand complex bindings, complex molecules. So the gamification of it, we haven't discussed that much.
It was more adding the feedback because they have the small 3D models that they can play around with, but you still don't know what you made once you built something. So that's one feature that this can give you the feedback. Now you made something,
and you did it correct, or this is not correct. This is not correct.
And then maybe visualize reactions as well to see, when it went from one thing to another, why it did. So it's building that into, understanding.
But was that something that was there from the beginning as an idea, or was it something that came through you working with it?
Well, it came through user research.
Came through user research, yes. From a sort of unstructured open interview with the institute.
I think that could be an idea to think about what actually did happen there. It's so much about it's a bug here and a bug there, but maybe the bug wasn't so important because we find out we should do like this, or that we wanted the pedagogical.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, the main reason for why we showed the bug was because they were so hilarious. In a full game, they would obviously be removed quite easily. I had several ideas of how to remove them, but not enough time to do so.
But most of the program in itself and what you saw in this tutorial came out of user research, because we had the idea of VR chemistry, and then we went into secondary, primary user research, collaboration with experts to understand which areas we should focus at based on what they would like to have in their classroom.
Yeah, we called first this chemistry lab and ended up with this molecules. So that's a journey.
I was thinking the exciting part of chemistry is when it all goes up. So I was the same thing. I mean, if you have methane and oxygen, or hydrogen and oxygen atoms together, nothing would happen. But then if you start heating up, you will see more vibration and motion, and things will start reacting.
Yeah, that could be an international,
that's
intentional thing.
Some teachers were very negative towards that. That was one thing. One was very much in terms of that the aspect of chemistry to handle the compounds in a safe environment was very, so that we had conflicting. Some thought, explosions is so much fun, if you are that type of teacher, but others were more like the one we met at Videoskolan. She was very much, no, we don't want them to do unsafe things. This course is all about, being safe.
That you can explain why it's dangerous to have hydrogen and oxygen together.
Yeah,
well,
I
you
tried.
Don't heat as well. You need something to ignite it all. So
Yeah.
you can explain without.
Well, we see a lot of potential, so there's no
limits. The bomb?
Probably not in an educational setting, probably not. Depending on
ethical bomb in the virtual environment.
In physics 1, they have to learn how to use.
I have a message to one of your conclusions for further work here that has to do with adding achievements to this kind of external, say, motivators. Where did that come from? Because it seems another strategy is to, oh no, I want this to be internally motivated. Just interests or for
It's a sandbox which you can play in.
Yeah,
You don't need.
fun to play with.
Yeah.
We have it.
That's more sustainable actually as
Yeah.
as a motivator than these external things.
The achievement would rather be monitoring your progress, I think, more than anything. And it's also about the feedback, you know, like a trophy. What is a trophy? It's just saying like, you completed this, right? And then you're like, oh, I earned a trophy. But we were looking into that in terms of kind of the gamification of the system. Using those motivators to motivate maybe some unmotivated students to see if you can do like the game narrative, maybe some more students will find the fun in it than just, you know, for my own. No.
If you were to release it for personal use, trophies would be quite useful because there are plenty of trophy hunters out there who want achievements to mark their progress. But for an educational purpose, goals would be more useful because then the teacher can set certain goals for them.
Yeah.
Totally. There's a long discussion around pedagogical approaches and whether you're constructivist or an objectivist in terms of your the structure of learning and the goal of an education system. So yeah, it's a big field, trust me. But
Maybe on the side.
yeah, we have a good long discussion about that.
Well, we need to talk about to the users.
But I think you're adding the boxes because they wanted to throw something.
Yeah.
It is sort of an internal motivator, and it's not rubbish. It's something.
It was part of the tutorial, so that you could have something to play with that wouldn't mess up our test.
For me, even things like showing that heat is just water, right, and molecule size, right, so that heat is nothing but movement, right, so that's something that people don't understand. So I think that's something you can show in an animated system, which you can't show in the normal molecules. So I think that's really interesting. And, you know, I think if you had those blocks with gravity, if you did have explosions, then those would be the consequential motions, right? So the molecule would explode, but like blocks near it would be thrown away, right? By being hit by parts of the molecules. So yeah, because that.
It's like when you have gymnastics at school, you get to play certain games, and at the end you can play around with it.
Just do anything.
So if you have like a lab like this, like this analogy, you can build different kinds of building these scenarios, and then at the end you can have like free-for-all play.
Maybe we could use some kind of a Frankenstein metaphor here. You build something first, and then you say,
see if you can
make it live.
Make it live. See it radioactively decays, and get the quarks and muons being spat out. And yes, I'm sure if we had a group of physicists and a group of chemists, we could probably find something. So the last thing is are any of you, like you were talking about the NumberStud collaboration, are any of you interested in continuing that collaboration, or do I need to find other students to do this? Maybe.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
There's a possibility.
Yeah.
What would tip the scales of collaboration? Would it be funding? What would be the motivator for you guys?
Well, I think we discussed it like from an interaction design perspective. So we've done most of like the initial, we could of course do a lot more research in terms of users and user testing periods. It was just, we feel like a lot of what needs to go into it now is the programming it. So we would be like someone that would revisit it at certain points, you know, to make sure that it's on the right path and do the user testing stuff. So we, I think that's what limits us is can we really, you know, get as much benefit in terms of our master thesis from because there is no way I can go into to create the VR with the experience that I have in the same way that SB and Verona.
So to some extent, if we were able to find funding over summer,
to get people to develop it further, and it was further along, then you'd see that would be something that would be interesting to use once there was more content to test and to be able to edit.
And it is also because it's one of the things that we've been talking about is for the interaction sciences, we feel like we're missing something from this because we haven't been part of really building anything in the same way, because it's really difficult to make a prototype in the way that we usually do in VR, because the skills needed are missing. So usually, if we're creating an app or a website, we can actually make the prototype and it's functional. We would give our name to the actual thing. But so I don't know. For me, it's the missing the building.
That sounds like a reason question. What is VR user interface design like?
Yeah.
The meta study, not observing yourself or observing something behind the designers of these things.
It's worth talking
about methodologies.
Yeah.
I would see instruction design on this possible development just to work with the feedback.
Yeah.
And the animation is nothing, the problem, but also to add sound, to add some visual feedback to experiment with that. Because that is more to motivate the intrinsic and the extrinsic motivation.
So for me, I think leaving it open as a possibility, and maybe discussing with the supervisors what theses would look like in this area.
Yeah, I think that's the what can we contribute and how can we move forward and still get the same value.
It's a case that can be used for a lot of these discussions. Even though we don't know more, you can use the case as a background or as a data source.
Yeah. And it would definitely need more user research than we've had time to do at this stage. So.
Another interesting research is this would, so far I've seen that we have the students grade one by one in their group, doing together experiments. What about the group projects? Can more users do that? How can they share, like some of the other experiments? How do we share VR model and see the other guys and work together? Look at that, how these use cases that part. I think that's a big topic in itself.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Extrinsic motivation. Nothing there. Says you have any questions?
I like the vibrating.
You should probably log out your user. I could probably, logging up for user.
So have any of you been watching Lost in Time? On TV Norway?
I did.
You went.
So you watched it?
Oh, no, I haven't watched it once yet. So anyone else watched Lost in Time, TV Norway?
I just heard that it crashed every time, so I didn't really see it.
My son watched it this weekend. I didn't, but he did, and he was really enthusiastic, calling me and telling me about it. Really enjoying it. 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, not at the time. Not at the time. But yeah, so, like, it plays on it.
Apparently now it does. It does
Yeah,
now.
it plays,
It didn't in the first 2 weeks. No, this is the VR game show. Yeah. So, yes. They're struggling with viewer methods.
And once you've lost it's hard to get back. Yeah. So yeah, they didn't have a soft core during that American style of, keep big release. And if you do that, you break. Whoa. And they break badly. So whereas if you have like a soft release and you break, and not many people do about it either. It was trial run basically. We just making sure with a large enough we're taking it, we're not making Ellen is a lovely woman, and so she's the designer of it. But the teak failures aren't needs to be shown. It looks bad for everyone. I think. Awesome. Right. Okay. So. Yes. Monthly French. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now this is the VR and time group. So yeah, you guys can present your project.
We took a slightly different approach from the other groups in terms of educational purposes. Yeah, we decided to make a game basically, just for fun. Yeah, and in VR. So yeah, we'll try to explain how we got to the idea that the game is about, a little bit about the process, and I will show you what we have created as a prototype or a tutorial thing. So at the start of our project, we had to come up with an idea. We started by applying brainstorming methods, and we started with affinity mapping, where all the team members wrote down our ideas for games and then categorized them to sort of get a feeling about how everyone was thinking, to sort of get a direction to head in. And that really laid the foundation of how we progress further. So we got some concepts that all of us wanted to have in the game. Solving puzzles, we wanted an element of mystery, we wanted the player to not know the full story, but rather discover it as we progress in the game. We wanted the element of exploration, we wanted to create a world that's exciting to travel within. And we also wanted a way to shift the environment. For our game, it's the player's ability to alter time or travel within multiple timelines. Here we also discussed shifting between a tiny and a gigantic world. We also discussed the player's ability to alter gravity, flip the entire world in another way. But eventually, we decided to go with time. Yes, and we played posted poker, which every team member, based on what we have agreed upon in the affinity mapping, wrote down
basic ideas, like short ideas for just small components within an idea, like environment and action and the context.
Yeah.
So you sort of have like a wedding, a murder,
disease outbreak.
Yeah, disease outbreak, things like that.
So we created these stories and discussed them, and eventually we had, I think it was 5 or maybe more, these stories that we liked,
but we didn't really know which one we were going to go for, so we decided to vote on it, which left us with 3 ideas.
And
Basically,
and then those 3 ideas became 2 ideas, and then those 2 ideas became 4 ideas. And basically, it took us a lot of time to nail down an idea. I don't think we actually began properly working on the design until the 7th village day. It took us that long.
so yeah, by the time that the quality or rather complicatedness of the ideas was rather, yeah, they were rather complicated or well developed, the ideas. We also used or looked at state-of-the-art VR games and also theory about level creation when taking this into account and developing the idea. Then we tried to, yeah, well, after we decided for the bomb idea, which we will show you later, we created a mind map where we tried to connect all the different aspects of our idea together, all the relations to visually organize and make sure that we're on the same page before actually start designing. Then we began sketching. So we tried to sketch every part of our idea, the world, the players, or the NPCs rather.
Yeah, you'll see some of them later.
Yes. And I will do it on discussion, but really discussion was obviously a continuous thing that went through all of this, and we found that it was not particularly the methods themselves that was valuable to us, but rather it's interesting discussions they provoked.
Yeah, because most of the days we discussed either personal things, just get to know each other, and then sort of shifted towards the game and sort of interesting game ideas from other games, which then sort of sparked new ideas to come up. Because there are a lot of games out there, and a lot of them have very good ideas. So those things usually pop up during just random discussions. And then we had sort of the prototyping. We chose Unity because, well, I'm the only programmer in the group, and I know Unity, so I decided to use Unity. I've worked with it before that for a half a year, almost full time. So it was a really good experience, and well, it makes some things very fast, but there's still only so much you can do as a lone programmer.
And limited assets.
And limited assets, yes.
We also use the Google SketchUp to do some models that the Unity was lack of, because the Unity model maybe lack of some details, so we just add something by the SketchUp.
Sort of get a feel of how everything should sort of look like within our first level.
Yes. And we didn't get to test with any users actually, because we didn't have time to develop much. But during the design process, we had heuristic evaluation. We actually created our own heuristics to this project because most of them, like Nielsen's, are more about product and the buds, which are more about web design stuff. But we also used some of them, like making the game cones. What do you call it?
Concept.
consistency, right, and standards, and also provide feedback for the signifiers, and taking a look at different books in game design and videos and blogs and stuff on about like how to guide the player through, especially in the tutorial level. And so we would like to navigate the player subconsciously by using signifiers from the environment in the game.
Yeah, because we don't feel that telling the player to do things is a good way of doing game design. Most of the good games, at least classic games, usually just toss you into a world like Zelda, which is toss you into the world, tell you nothing basically. You just figure it out yourself. You don't get told where to go, you just explore.
Still have to tell the player something, but by doing that subconsciously, it's better. Supposed to be fun as well. So
yeah, especially when we are so young, not everyone knows how to manipulate controllers.
I got the last point there.
All right. About the user group, I think all the VR producers they operate with age limit about 12 or 13 plus. So there's really no point of making a game for children, let's say 5-year-olds, I guess.
Yeah, they basically recommend that children don't use it, at least not without parental supervision.
Yes. That's more from a legal protection point of
Yes.
view than any actual research. That
Yes,
anything
that's why we also added the
Right, so we did state of the art, and we tried out some different VR games to get some inspiration for what we actually want to create, like which game, what type of game. And we found this game called Climbing, so it's about climbing platforms, jumping around, and you want to elaborate more?
Yeah, it's basically just a climbing simulator. It has some interesting mechanics like sliding on ice, I don't know, jumping, sort of doing freestyle climbing, basically. It's very interesting. It also has a co-op mode, which would also be interesting to add into the game, like because you can sort of help each other by stretching out their hands, grabbing, pulling the other one up. It does have some very, very interesting mechanics in it.
Yes. So we also tried out VR games to try to understand better how movement is done, teleportation versus walking with your arms up and down.
And the
trackpad.
Trackpad, yeah.
Yes.
Trackpad walking is terrible. Thank you.
Yeah, so we focused on movement actually a lot actually in the prototype and designing for it and stuff. And also we had to look into how to construct levels. So a bit about Super Mario. I actually found a very good video of how to explain the stuff. And the first thing is that they introduce a concept. So let's say the player has the ability to jump. I'm very sorry, the animations are terrible in this one. But, so first they introduce so the player can jump, and that's into a safe environment. So the player cannot possibly die actually when they just try out jumping. And as the game progresses, it gets harder. Then it gets more difficult. So we actually want more challenges. So that's how like Super Mario games actually build their games. They introduce a concept, control these mechanics, and then you have to use precision and stuff to overcome the levels. So we try to actually use those concepts in our games as well to make it fun stuff. Yeah.
Next one is our game concept. The first one is our game story. So the main character is the player himself. So he is a monkey. So the monkey is in an abandoned zoo in a certain corner of the world. So one day he went through the forest and he found a monkey elder, and in the monkey elder's house, there was a time machine that he can use it to do the time travel. But in this period, there's something strange happened in the forest. Every day there were some accidents in the happened in the zoo, and some animal will be died from the accidents. So the player and the elder monkey should save these animals, and they will try to use that time machine to go back or go to the future to solve some puzzles to save all of these animals and make them alive again. So our main concept is the time travel. So the environment is an abandoned zoo, but in the abandoned zoo there are several biomes. There are some like deserts, forests, or mountains, or some place like that. So our main goal is to rescue the animals from spacious accidents with the help of the ability to the outer time.
Right, so you have characters. You have the player. That's not the player. That's the elder. That's Simon.
As a monkey.
Yes. And basically you're playing as a monkey. So one of the biggest signifiers for you being a monkey is you can have monkey hands. And you should be sort of short. Actually, it's not you that's shorter, it's just the word that's bigger. Yes, that's the easiest way of sort of signifying that you're small without actually, you don't want to alter the height of people in VR. That's big no-no. It's sort of, if you're inside the ground, you'll get, you sort of feel like you're being cut in half, which is a very strange experience. So yeah, there are different NPCs, as in our NPCs are animals. There are different NPCs in different biomes, and you unlock more levels when you get more NPCs. There was a discussion at one point about what types of animals we were going to use. We wanted to introduce animals that are both common, so people get more aware of what those animals do, like what to do when you meet a bear. What do you do when you meet, let's say, an elk with a child, and you're in between them, in a way, and possibly using extinct animals, like the dodo, just to sort of show people that, oh, things are happening in the world. We need to sort of stop killing all the animals, basically. Right, so you have the different biomes, some art of the different monkey houses in those different biomes. So you have one in the forest, so it's up in a tree, it's a tree house. You have cave within the mountains, in the icy biome, you have equally, and a riverboat in the swamp, I think it was. Right. So this is sort of the this is sort of how the tutorial level is supposed to look like, with the treehouse, a vine that's part of the story, where a monkey sort of tried to climb it and fell down, hurt himself, and now you have to sort of solve that by getting, I think, those bananas up there. So you have to climb further up, and that's also, I think that Henry could explain more. But yes, so your objective is basically stopping from fall, at least that's sort of tutorial-ish. Right, time travel, which is sort of one of the main points of the game. So we have a banana fueled time machine that can go to the past and the future, at least when you're in the present. We did discuss about using either, there was actually a discussion about whether or not we should use 2 or 3 buttons. Because to a player it might be, I don't know, it might be confusing if there are 3 buttons, like present, past, and future. You might not know which time zone you're in if you get confused at some point, I don't know, if you come back into the game later. Maybe just having 2 buttons is sort of better.
Yeah, so the tutorial level. So the main purpose is to like educate the player how to use the controllers and mechanics in the game. And that is first of all walking in VR. I think how do you walk actually?
You press the grip buttons and do basically a running or walking motion.
Yes. And also you can climb, so you have to like grab the tree and stuff.
Yeah, with the triggers.
With the triggers, yes. So you would like show like pop-up message or something where you actually show the controller which button you should press to climb, grab items. That also works for like interaction. Not necessarily grabbing the trigger, but trying to showcase which control buttons you should use to interact with stuff. And yeah, so here's another sketch. This is inside the treehouse. So when you climb up and enter the treehouse, you will see another monkey, and he'll tell you about the time machine. Yeah, Simon Monkey. So from here, there's also more going on. There's 2 doors. You can enter the balcony and another door which leads to the banana you're supposed to touch. Doesn't it show? No.
But the balcony is sort of outside the balcony is where you see the vine that the monkey fell down from, and well, the other door is sort of where you start climbing to get the banana for the time machine because it's banana fuel. Yeah, we have the time machine.
Also selection board to select all the levels. And yeah, so we got a small video in which is with Google SketchUp. So try to make the camera work here. So we're supposed to go. Right, so he's supposed to go there to meet this monkey, and he's laying here, and there's a torn vine on the ground, and this monkey is he's injured. So he tells you that he fell down from the tree, and he also tells you that you can climb the tree to talk to the monkey in the treehouse. So the player learns how to climb and he'll try to test this out. So if he actually falls down from the tree here, he'll just, nothing particular will happen. He'll just have to try again to try to climb. And he enters the treehouse. You can see this monkey. You also see the selection board, level selection board on the right. Also the time machine itself. So as you can see, the time machine requires 1 regular banana in order to be used. And you can then go to the past. The present button should be kind of pressed in, actually, to signify that you actually are in the present. Then you use the lever on the right to activate by doing time travel. So from here, the player has 2 main choices. You can go to the balcony, for example, and then you get the overview of the world, basically, and you can also see banana and the wine up in the tree, right? So, but there's no way going there right now, actually. This branch should not be there, actually, of the balcony. So that they can go the other exit, which is this branch, and you climb up there, and the climbing gets tougher from this point, so it gets harder. And if you actually fall down from there, then you will die, respawn in the tree house.
Yeah, sort of because when you're trying to climb up from the treehouse and you fall down, you don't die. But when you're above it, like at the height of the treehouse and fall down, that's sort of when you die. Sort of signifying that there is sort of a height. So that's sort of you have a grace period, basically, to learn how to climb. And then the tutorial, especially climbing up to the vine, is sort of the more hard part where you can die, sort of also where you're supposed to learn that you can die within the game.
So the objective is to obtain banana, use it, or go back, use it in the time machine, go back in time. As you climb up, you realize that the wine is damaged or sabotaged suspiciously. You fix it, and monkey won't fall down. So, yeah. But
Right. So the prototype in itself. So it is a basic terrain, just to make it look sort of nice. We are sort of in a forest, so we should have some terrain features and some trees. Yes, why not? And that's our beautiful tree. It doesn't have complex shapes because this climbing script I'm using doesn't take complex shapes, so I can't really use meshes. I didn't have time to write that in, so we use just cylinders for it. And you also have the treehouse with it up there and a monkey lying down there who has something to say. And so, at least for the beginning, the dialogue will sort of just press a button because we didn't really want to add audio and possibly make it look nicer. But just do the most basic stuff you can. All right? Yeah, more of the treehouse. All right. Yeah, just a bunch of pictures, basically. You have the house, it's currently empty. Yeah. And you can probably also show, yeah, that's sort of the climbing because well, I didn't have time to add the hands either. So you get the controllers. Yeah.
show them.
The demo, right. Oh, right. Yeah, probably.
I can just start it.
Yeah. Probably move a bit away.
There we go. Right. So we sort of get a feel for you being.
You might have to restart VR if you want them to turn on. So you might have to turn it.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Get back to Steam and turn it on. Who's the owner of the GTL_engineered_2 account?
Yeah, Gregor.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
you made
this
it.
is the machine that Gregor uses. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Not working at all.
It says it's running in the tools.
Probably is.
Yay, it's really.
Nope. They're refusing to track. Yeah.
Make it less tracking.
Yeah, it might be battery related. I don't know.
Okay, no, it reckons they're already. It's just that you're not showing them in your program. You have to restart the program.
They're working. Yeah. Restart the program. Can you restart it? Just press. Move the window out. Move the window slightly down. I'm not sure about that.
Or do you need to restart Unity?
Probably.
You might have to kill Unity.
Yeah, just for Unity.
You want me to say it? Okay.
I think. Oh, yeah, I know what it was. Just start Unity 5.6. It had 5.6, so. 10.
Cheerful.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't have to do that again. Can you go into the hierarchy? Delete the object tooltip. Yep. And try pressing start key. Let's see if this works. Yep. It's gone again. Yep, this ain't working. What is it doing? Oh, it is tracking.
Was it finding in the scene?
Should be working.
So what were you going to show off in the system?
Okay, I'll just enable them then.
Enable where?
There. Let's see if that works. Okay. It doesn't work.
Try stopping it.
Restart it.
Now try it. Likely compile.
I think it's probably the same bug that I had with.
Yeah, it's probably just some bugs. It always happens in Unity, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
F56 had a new problem with the controllers across the planet, basically. So now a lot of people had complained about it.
Right.
So
was there a particular reason why you reached to 5.6 from 5.5?
Yes.
Which was the reason?
It had some updates to VR and particle systems, which I'm currently doing work on. Right.
But what would you have shown us if it had worked?
Basically, the climbing.
Okay.
Because
So
that's sort of the main thing in the tutorials, are learning how to climb up
Right, you don't mean the grabbing and pulling yourself up.
Yeah, and there are also some bugs I would probably highlight, like if something's too thin and you seem like you're standing on it, you might actually just fall through it because of sort of the tracking. It sort of tracks your entire height down. So if you're just a little bit underneath something that's very thin, you just fall through, which is a very strange problem. I didn't attempt to fix it, so basically what I would do to fix it to just say send a raycast from my head down.
Right. To make sure that if you're in the way.
Yeah, just push myself up. There's also when you fall down, when you've been climbing, you can't walk anymore. No idea why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you fell, you've broken your legs.
Yes, basically. So there are some small things, let's just say, that are problematic, but it's very basic.
Right. So, and the rest of the presentation, or is that?
Yes, that should be it.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you. So, questions. Right, so we've got apparently air vents in the room next to. Okay, so in terms of your user group focus, who would you test this on?
I would test it first with sort of more experienced users, just so we can actually figure out what's wrong, because these sorts of things usually have fairly big problems, at least controls, and something we've also noticed, at least with the particular prototype that we've been working on, is you sort of get dizzy after a while. I'm not entirely sure what it is. I haven't had time to actually look at it too thoroughly. So that would need to be sort of figured out, to gather some metrics and see whether or not there's shaking in the camera or the head mount or something that sort of causes it, or if it's possibly textures that are causing it, so disconnects between the brain and what information it expects. And after just some of the smaller problems I fixed, try and get possibly newer users to see if they can sort of grasp grasp controls.
Yeah.
Because they might be too, whether or not it's too complex to sort of comprehend through a simple.
And what would be a successful game? If this was to become successful, what would that look like, and who would play it?
What would a successful game look like? Right, it would be
a successful version of this.
Yeah, it would be right. It would be finished, basically. That's one thing. Yeah, it would have a lot of different biomes with a lot of assets, because we need sort of animal assets and animations. Specifically more custom ones, because we don't want, at least in the beginning, we didn't want the animals to be like straight up animals. We want them to sort of have slightly more human characteristics. Yeah.
Right. So so that would rely heavily on design team coming up with a large number of 3D assets.
Yes.
And animations.
Yeah. Animations would be.
And so who would play this?
This would probably be played by people that like exploring, possibly achievers. I'm guessing that people that possibly like climbing is one thing, or have an interest in it, as well as possibly a younger audience, because we're trying to sort of teach them about consequences of their actions through sort of manipulating time and doing things, as well as sort of about the animals and where they actually live. We want it to be sort of biome specific, like the animals live there.
Very larger picture, and then the other groups have more serious applications. And VR, of course, it's quite useful for fun apps, but they also have SSS and this setting. So, what skills, what experiences, what at a high level, what would the players of this game learn that would be useful for more serious VR apps? So, what would you? I mean. So obviously they will have their displays and some other interaction, but yeah, I mean, it would be good if sort of a game would give the players an experience that could be transferred to other, even more, or especially for serious apps. Have you ever thought about how that could be transferred?
Yes, we've actually been discussing that as well, sort of. We've been trying to choose things for, or at least design things for the game that aren't specific to what VR does now, but what we sort of see VR doing in the future, like movement. We don't think that teleportation will be a thing that's sort of standard in the future. It will be probably movement of some sort, it may be legs, because you probably just add some sensors to your legs and you can sort of stand and walk. There were some other things that I'm forgetting right now. We actually had that discussion yesterday, I think. I can't remember, but we do have it sort of, if we have written that.
Right, okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you. Come and eat your cookie. Extrinsic motivator. Luckily we have enough cookie, there are some leftovers. Okay, so that brings a close to the formal turning up to class bits of expert and teams. You have until midnight tomorrow night to submit your project reports and your progress reports. And I think, as you can see, we've made various different amounts of progress. The project report will be on the project, and the process report is very much on your reflections. So the grade as a whole is not just a straight linear combination of those two, right? So it will be adjusted to see kind of what happened and how you responded to it, right? So it's not, I'm not going to make it just a kind of 50-50, average the two, whatever you average you get. It'll actually, there'll be an adjustment depending on how your project went and what focus you had and what you have to write about. If there are no further questions or comments, do you guys have any overall comments about presentations? Very, they're happy we're finished. So thank you all, and thank you for sort of doing this VR Village. It was interesting. I as I was saying to one of the other students, although this is for the Mac students, we have 3 tracks of games, web, and mobile. Actually doing this has kind of added a 4th track to the Masters as a VR track, basically. So although Expert Teams is about the collaboration, we've kind of now got an extra track that you could then focus on for your Masters and work in that area.
VR, isn't it really mobile, wearable?
Well, it can be included anywhere, right? So the thing is that it kind of adds an extra thing. So you've now got 4 areas basically that you're choosing from in terms of specializations within Masters. So, right now, we also have, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of other commercial companies who are interested in your work and interested in talking to you. So if you're interested in discussing your work with commercial partners, particularly on potential Masters theses topics and working collaborative with externals, we have Runa and Richard who are interested in coming in and talking to you. And Tom can also connect you with those people as well, because he's also working commercially and collaborating with them. We have the option of looking at what's happening in VR in the region. If you're interested in VR, The financial director here is trying to work out what we do in terms of VR. We're doing this collaboration with Trondheim. Eon Reality is developing itself over the other side of the lake. So there's a lot of VR activity happening. So you guys are early on the ground in this. And so there is a lot of potential open areas to think about over the next year or so. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'll look forward to reading all your reports Friday. Okay, right. Have a good afternoon. Bye.